Hello everyone. In today's command tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at creating ad hoc close air support as well as ground attack missions. So our scenario here is a pretty straightforward scenario. We're sitting here in Afghanistan. It is the middle 80s. I'm sure you can probably put two and two together with the general kind of theme I'm going with here. So first things first, I've done a couple things a little differently to kind of make things a little interesting. For one, if you go up to special actions for this particular mission, I've created a script that will actually randomly generate these two different types of units throughout the actual map in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and of course in Iran as well. So I'm actually going to go ahead and execute both of these. So now the cool thing here is, as a player, I have no knowledge of the quantity or location of anything that just got spawned in a second ago. And no, I'm not cheating. You can actually take a look at the script a little later on if you want to do something similar. So anyway, with that being said, let's take a look at our different units that we have at our disposal today. So we'll go ahead and do our usual browse scenario platforms. We'll go ahead and take a look at aircraft. Looks like we have MiG-23BNs. Those are pretty much the predecessor of the MiG-27. It's not too bad. MiG-27s, we also have the M version of MiG-27. Su-17s, of course, all the M's and the M3s. That's pretty good. Oh, right. We have the RB and the RBS. We don't have the new one, but that's still pretty good. We have a good pack of Hinds here, good splattering of MiG-21s, and of course, we have some Badger Ks. So the first problem we're going to have is locating enemy targets inside of this huge country. I mean, just quickly going like this, you can see them about 450 nautical miles that way, about 600 nautical miles that way. So how are we going to arrange this? Well, it kind of goes back to the same expression I'm sure you've heard before. If you try to look everywhere, you're going to find nothing. If you try to look in one spot, that's all you're going to find. So we're going to have to strike some kind of balance between the two. And we're also going to have to consider what we have as far as reconnaissance platforms. Unfortunately for us, the only tactical reconnaissance platform that we have for kind of quick stuff is the MiG-21 BIS. This equips a recon pod, which is not the worst, but it's also not necessarily the best either. If I go and open up its statistics real quickly, you can see it only has a 5 nautical mile range. And of course, it's usable. It's just not terribly great range. Another problem we have, by the way, with Afghanistan is the incredible amount of mountains. I mean, look what mountains are right here. This is the Himalayas. These things are huge. So it's definitely going to make this difficult. Second item that I have coming down here at Kandahar Air Base is I have the two MiG-25s. I have the RB, and of course I have the RBS, which are basically the same style aircraft with just a better side-looking airborne radar. Now the neat thing about the RBS is that side-looking airborne radar actually has a pretty decent range. It's about 40 nautical miles. It also has the ability to search for targets that are moving, which is very, very usable to us. Swinging back to the older, the RB model, let's go ahead and take a look at what we have here. We have a generic visual camera with a 5 mile range, SI, and of course we lack that incredibly potent side-looking airborne radar. So with that in mind, how are we going to set up our mission to check this place out? Well, we know for a fact that any targets that ended up spawning in down here are going to be easy to detect because of how flat it is. Any targets up here in the mountains are going to be much more difficult to try to locate because of the presence of these mountains. That also means that I'm going to have to really, really take my time here and kind of rush it down there. With that in mind, I'm going to pretty much set up use my tactical reconnaissance assets in the north and then use my more broad area assets down here in the south. Let's go ahead and start setting that up right away. All right, I'm going to set my standard mission. Now, one really cool trick to make these missions a little bit simpler to execute is to simply set it up so that when you do it as a ground attack patrol, but your aircraft that you're ground attack patrolling with, quote unquote, doesn't have any weapons to attack the ground with, except for cannons. So kind of keep that in mind. So I'm going to call this Tactical Recon MiG-21. I'll let these guys get everybody up in the north. Again, I'm going to set this to anti-surface warfare, ground. Go ahead and grab all of my MiG-21s. Now here's one thing you want to not mess up. Make sure this is set to single aircraft. If you accidentally do it in pairs, they're going to be twice as visible. No, it doesn't work that way, not in command. So just kind of keep that in the back of your head. The other thing you want to consider is, do I want continuous coverage or do I want to kind of send everybody out all at the same time and send everybody back in? Now, this particular mission designer chose to set it up so we're using what they call sustained operations. Sustained operations means that if you actually were to click on a unit, oh, this is the wrong unit. I meant to get the BIS, but I'll get that in a second. That means, let me go and close that because I've made it all sorts of painful. If you were to go to reload a unit, you'll notice that the time to take available is something like 20 hours. That simply means that if I'm going to be doing attacks, I might as well get them all done during daylight hours and then reload them overnight. That would suggest sending everybody out all at the same time and then kind of bringing them back over time rather than kind of piecing them out because, again, I'm not really useful at night anyway, so I might as well spend that time reloading. So let's go ahead and get the correct MiG-21s. Like I said, we need to get the MiG-21 BIS for this. Where are you? Every MiG-21 you could ever need, by the way. I see, I saw the S and freaked out. There we go. Excellent. Set them to single aircraft. I'm going to launch them all at the same time, and I have no problem with them investigating as long as they don't go rushing off into Iran, which would probably not end well for us. Now, another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to station throttle. I'm going to set this to cruise. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set their station altitude. Now remember, these have a 5 nautical mile visible range. So 5 times about 6,000 feet is about 30,000 feet if I'm looking straight down. Keep in mind we have some extremely tall mountains here, and most of the targets we're going to be engaging and attacking are probably going to be fairly small and fairly tough to spot anyway. So if we approach them from 30,000 feet, yeah, we're going to save a lot of gas, but we're not going to see a thing. It's better to save this kind of altitude for our MiG-25s. So what's a good altitude to use? Well, let's take a look here. 5,748 feet. I'm sure there's some stuff up in the 10,000 range up in here. So 15,000 feet would give us a slant distance of about 3.5 nautical miles, which isn't great. But at the same time, is if we do locate something, they're going to be smart enough not to get in the lethal range of whatever it is we might bump into. So in this particular case, I'm actually going to set this altitude to 15,000 feet. Now, one thing you got to watch out for is you have to set your transit altitude the same as your station altitude. These two altitudes are actually going to be basically the same for a random area patrol. I know that's kind of misleading because technically the airplane is transiting to the next position in its patrol. It doesn't just patrol at that speed. Obviously, if we were using the repeatable loop, this would be a little bit different, but for us, those are going to be the same thing for us. You can also set this to terrain following if you want to be a little more precise, but this I think is going to work fairly well for us. Okay, so that takes care of kind of the north. Of course, what I should probably do is send a couple of those side-looking airborne radar MiG-25s up there as well, because they're really, really good at this. But what I'd rather do for them is actually use them to kind of patrol all the place. If I had a couple more aircraft, I could probably get a little bit more experimental and just use the radar aircraft down here. But, like I said, I like to make things kind of interesting for myself as always. Let's go ahead and grab all those. Let's go ahead and grab all these real quick. I think this is everybody I'm going to want for my side-looking radar. Yeah, let's take a chance. I'm actually going to set these guys to take up the entire map. Let's go ahead and create another mission. We're going to do MiG-25 SLAR. These things are really cool. Ground. Okay, I can fix that. All fixed. Let's validate it. Hey, we did it. So we're going to want the MiG-25 newer ones. Let's go ahead and see if I can find those real quick. There we go. The RBS is kind of the new version. Go ahead and set our options very carefully. We want to make sure that they have the ability to use active radar here. Now, because we're going to be using the radar on these aircraft, we don't have to worry as much about traveling at the wrong altitude. But that being said, I still want a chance for these aircraft to actually be able to detect things on the ground. So I'm going to make sure that they're not too high. So kind of doing the math in my head, it sounds like it's going to be somewhere around 22,000 feet. Again, same issue we were going to have before. Obviously, the higher we travel, the more gas we save, but that's okay. That looks good. That looks good. That looks. Uh-oh, almost fell for it. And that'll be pretty good for us as well. Now, last but not least, we're going to be interested in using our regular MiG-25s as well. Now, unfortunately, the regular MiG-25s do not have that incredible capability to basically, like I was saying before, use that side-looking radar. So we're going to keep those guys mostly concentrated in the south. Kind of think them almost as the kind of equivalent of what they had up at the north with the MiG-21s, but there are less of them. So we'll go ahead and set this up as well, MiG-25R. We're going to do a patrol. We're going to do this as one of those. There's actually a MiG-25 that carries bombs. I always thought that was kind of neat. We're going to go ahead and find the more traditional Foxbat. We're going to go ahead and set these sets off. Looks good. We're going to go ahead and set the transition out, or transit altitude, I should say. It's been a long day. We're going to knock this down to 15,000 feet also, just like our buddies. All right, let's go ahead. Looks like I accidentally deleted half of the patrol points that I wanted to use here. Let me go ahead and add those as well. Validate the area. Looks good to me. Everything's all set. That's all set. That's all set. Good, good, good. Single aircraft. I want them all up in the air at the same time. And now we're good to go. So I'm going to go down on pause and talk about our next part of our strategy. Now, if this were an actual warfare situation, generally we could probably take our time in engaging targets. But for the purpose of today's demonstration, I wanted to kind of show you some of the strategies you can use to be able to quickly attack targets. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and give myself a patrol area. Now you're probably sitting here going, okay, what are you doing? Well, what I want to do is I want to create a support mission that basically keeps aircraft airborne, and then as soon as I need them, I can basically call them up. So how do we do this? Well, we need to consider the range of the aircraft first. So if I'm operating out of Shindand, we have MiG-27s, which if you click on one really, really, really quickly, you can see that they have a 540 nautical mile strike radius, which is pretty good. That means we could go all the way to here and actually come back, but we don't necessarily need to do that. So what we'll do is we'll instead split the difference and take about half. The other point I want to mention too is there's no point in just ordering them to patrol up here when I can use aircraft, the MiG-21s, that are located up here at this airbase. So this area of operations is basically going to be the responsibility of the MiG-27s. Let me go ahead and make sure everything's deselected real quick. I'm going to go ahead and grab these guys. And this time I'm going to do something a little different. MiG-27 AOR. I'm going to call them support. Now, one big difference here is I'm going to set them to groups of 4, number 1. And number 2, I'm going to leave the 1/3 rule turned on because I don't want to use them all at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and grab these guys. It's probably going to give me a big angry message here because I have an odd number, but that's perfectly fine. Notice my MiG-27s, by the way, are carrying LGBs. We probably shouldn't be using MiG-27s for this if they're going to be carrying LGBs. Let's go ahead and get their older buddies, the MiG-23s. Ah, much better. 240 millimeter rockets. That'll work. Okay, so that basically will represent our support mission for MiG-23s that are basically going to be in the air, ready to strike at anything we find in the north. So what we'll do too is we'll do the exact same thing down here. And this support mission is going to be dedicated to, let's see here, with the MiG-27s I don't want to touch, MiG-27Ms, MiG-27, we'll use the regular MiG-27s. So we'll go ahead and call this MiG-27. South for real. Set it to support, press OK. Go ahead and get our group of MiG-27s. We're going to make sure we don't accidentally get the LGB version, which we did last time. Oh, where did you guys go? That's what I was hoping to find. Yeah. Set this to 4 sections, of course. 1/3 rule critical. And everything else is pretty much exactly what I want. We're going to go ahead and change this to MiG-23 AOR. So what's going to happen is we're going to have one group of aircraft kind of hanging out down here. I'm actually going to move this one down a little bit. Another group of aircraft kind of hanging out up here, pretty much ready to strike at any time. You can see it creates kind of like a little radius. Meanwhile, we have our Hinds. Now, Hinds are pretty cool helicopters. I'm sure you're probably familiar with them. They're actually equipped with anti-tank rockets. So anything we find, we can quickly send the Hinds in, except that helicopters aren't fast. So if you really want to use the helicopters in an ad hoc sort of a way, you have to operate them in a very, very tight area. In this particular case, I'm actually probably going to keep them within 75 miles of the airbase itself. Hopefully you're able to keep track of all these points because it's starting to get a little crazy for me. So we'll go ahead and find a point about 75 nautical miles away. And that looks pretty good right here. Go ahead and call that Hind. Anti-ground patrol. Again, when you're working with Hinds, you want to use them in large groups to make them a little bit more lethal. We'll go ahead and leave the 1/3 rule left on. I'm actually going to do random with area, and I'm going to grab all of my Hinds. Keep in mind, some of these Hinds do have forward-looking infrared, which makes them way, way more effective at detecting. So if there is anything close to our airbase, we're probably going to detect it. I'm going to leave stuff down here completely alone, but I am going to shut that off because I don't want to be wasting time kind of just tooling around like that. Okay, so let's just kind of think things through really quickly. By the way, you should always name your reference points. I chose not to, so that we don't spend too much time doing that. So last but not least, of course, if you come down to the south to Kandahar Airport, we have the Su-17s. These are going to struggle because of their limited range. So I'm just trying to think about the best place to place them. Obviously, for this group down here, we're definitely going to want to go ahead and place them up north in case we need any. And again, this is for those MiG-21s. So we'll go ahead and say MiG-21 AOR. Go ahead and do that as a patrol, actually support, sorry, because we want them to stay at high altitude. So we'll go ahead and grab our MiG-21S. We're going to leave it on that mode. We're going to set them to groups of 4 again. I'm going to slap them over here. If I need more MiG-21s, I can always trade those guys out and send in my MTs a little later on. They're all carrying bombs. Now, one thing you're probably sitting there going is, why don't you use those bombers as basically endurance reconnaissance platforms? Unfortunately, those bombers don't have great visibility out the sides and the back, which meant if I sent them out into the field, they're just going to end up tooling all the way around and then spending 2 days being serviced before I could use them again, which is well outside the scenario's time limit. Anyway, so now we've got everybody up in the air. Now it's just a matter of hoping that our reconnaissance platforms track something down. So you can already see our radar units. I'm actually going to save myself a little bit of a lag here by shutting that off. And off everybody goes. So remember, the single units will be the individual MiG-25s, MiG-21s doing the reconnaissance. The group of units will be my support units. Stop. We got something. So we've identified a mobile unit. It came from my side looking, yeah, nice. Just like I promised, that radar actually does a really solid job, even with all this crazy mountainous of spotting things. So unfortunately, I didn't set up an attack group in the south. So that means I'd have to borrow one of the MiG-27 groups or one of the MiG-21 groups. But in this particular case, because we're so darn close to Kandahar, we might as well just make a quick little mission ourselves. Go ahead and grab Kandahar Airport. Let's see, what is the nature of the target? Any idea? We should probably get some more information. Do I have one of the regular MiGs hanging around? Is that right? Yeah, it is. I'm going to send in one of my regular MiG-25s. Meanwhile, I'll go ahead and get myself a group of Su-17s ready to go. Launch them as a group. Keep in mind, like I said, if these guys were closer to the other group, we'd be using the regular types. The ones that have already got airborne, rather. Alright, good. Send these guys to this position immediately. Weather, by the way, there's some clouds, so we got to be kind of careful. Whoop. We're getting a second group. Nice. Apparently, we bumped into some sort of outpost, and I have a feeling my hinds are already on it. Excellent work, gentlemen. Excellent work. Slow down time here, because things are probably going to happen too fast here. Meanwhile, our MiG-25 here, I'm actually going to drop down to low altitude. Reason being is I need to get underneath that cloud cover in order to really identify what this unit is. So our MiG-24s, I should say our Mi-24s, are doing a nice job launching their swatter missiles at this particular outpost here. Now, one problem is we're going to go through a lot of those to kill that outpost, so it'd be better to go get those MiG-27s. But, like, I just don't want the hinds to feel left out. Meanwhile, we lost it. Nope, there it is. Nicely done. So we need to keep this particular MiG-25 pretty much on station until we can get a little closer. Just really hoping we get an ID on that target. Nicely done. So again, we're using this MiG-25 basically as a way. We just spotted another unit. Things are getting interesting already. Let's see here. This is our lucky day. Remember that MiG-21S group that we kept? Go check it out, boys. Those guys now can instantly attack without me having to do anything special. Meanwhile, we're using our little MiG-25 here to help glide in this group over here. Meanwhile, up here on this side of things, we're doing quite a number on that enemy outpost, dropping rockets and bombs on it. This is working great. So look at this. Total time from detection to attack, less than 5 minutes. Of course, if we lose sight of the target, we can no longer attack it. Shoot. Oh, look at that. Nicely done, boys. Nice. Nicely done. Okay. I'm going to send this MiG-25 up there now, bring it back up to high altitude. Let's see. We still have this group, and you guys have plenty of weapons left, so there's no reason to waste them. So I might as well assign them to, let's see here. I'm going to go send them over to that MiG-27 group. Meanwhile, I'm going to grab my little handy-dandy MiG-21s, unassign them, and then order them to make some pretty quick speed here. While my MiG-25, which is over here, not that MiG-25, this MiG-25 right here makes his way to the target area. Keep in mind, at any point, we could have called up some more aircraft, but these hinds are having a great time of it, so I'm just going to let them have some fun. Alright. Let's make sure there's nothing else that appeared since I started getting carried away here. Let's speed up time. You can see that group of MiG-21. Oh, spotted something. Who's this? Let's go ahead and call up another one of my groups to come help us out. Those are Hind Ds. They're already very engaged offensive. Would you guys be so kind as to deal with that? You guys are perfectly in range. Alright, our MiG-25. I'm actually going to do one of these things to try to detect him with his radar. Bingo! Gotcha! I'm going to go ahead and do a little hexagon around the target area to try to keep them in view as our MiG-21s, which are already on assignment, come swinging around here. All right, guys. They're up way too high for some reason, but that's okay. Let's go bring them down to normal altitudes. Oh, they already shot. I don't think you're going to hit anything at that range. Nicely done, boys. Nicely done. So now I can right-click on them, assign to mission, and send them right back to where they just were without any effort. And now I can just call them back up again if I need them a little later on. So that's the basic concept that I'm going to be using throughout the rest of this scenario. Basically, use a reconnaissance platform to identify a target, unassign it for just a minute. By the way, this guy's all set now. He can start drilling around. And then use support missions to basically keep aircraft airborne at all times. That's basically all there is to it. This works, by the way, for other types of missions too. For example, if you did reconnaissance on an enemy airfield and you wanted to determine what's there before you send strikers, you could have the strikers on a support mission ready to go before things even happen. Looks like we've identified 2 more targets. Now, if you remember, we have these Su-17s ready to go. Unassign, F1, click. Unassign, F1, click. We could always add them to a mission also, but these guys are going to do a bang-up job of this anyway, so I'm not too concerned. Actually, I want him to go like this. And it's dead. Now I just come here, reassign you guys to the mission. Good job, guys. Nicely done, nicely done. Send them back home. Meanwhile, our other buddies heading this way. Keep in mind, we could do this by just launching aircraft from airfields as well. While that works, it's a lot slower than this method. So these guys are rushing in. Oh, this score is going to get hammered. Done. So let's go ahead and reassign these guys back to the mission they were just on a second ago. And just like that, I can just call them back up and send them back to their patrol zone all the time. Let's see here. I think whatever helicopters receive some damage. That happens sometimes, unfortunately. Look at that. It's basically automatic. All I have to do is wait till somebody finds somebody, and within minutes, they're being attacked with very, very accurate munitions. It's just incredible how effective that is as far as the strategy goes, especially if you know you're dealing with enemies who are busy reloading. Of course, if you notice, all of my MiG-21s have all come back home to refuel, which is kind of a bummer. Looks like we spotted something else here. I'm assuming it's not friendly. We should never make that assumption. Unassign, F1, click. Look at this. Evaporated. Right click, assign them back to the mission. And that's it. Oh, pick something else up. We're having a good day here. Let's see here. What are we looking for? Oh, I believe that's friendly. Whoever you are, whatever that is, you're friendly. You need to go home the first chance you get, because obviously... Stop! Ooh, what's this? We spotted an enemy outpost. Luckily for us, looks like they're not going to have enough fuel. No, they have 55 minutes. We can make this work. Who's the slowest? Yeah. Unassign. And let's go ahead and send them after that. Now, the cool thing here is, you guys are MiG-21s also. Can I borrow you on this mission? Yes, as a matter of fact, I think I'm going to borrow you also for this purpose. All right. Oh, we spotted something else also. Wow, you guys did a nice job of that. Well done. You can actually go home. Oh, wait. Reassign them to the mission before sending them home. As far as this group goes, you guys are looking pretty good. You can engage this outpost we spotted. Thank you. Oh, we spotted something else. Let's go ahead and take care of that also. Oh, you guys ran out all the good stuff. Make sure you change your WRA, by the way, otherwise it's going to go on. So anyway, this would continue. I'm not going to waste any time. I think you have a fairly good idea of how quickly and easily you can grab them off their support mission, do an attack, and reassign them to the support mission to keep them airborne. Now, here's the cool thing. If you have aerial refueling, you can do this even better. Now, one last thing I'm going to do before I head out is you want to see just how many targets we missed, don't you? Take a look. You can see that the concentration of targets that we missed today were in areas that we were never searching. We didn't really look. We looked a little bit up here, but not much. But a lot of these targets we never would have actually located because they were in non-attack areas. Now, I get the feeling we lost a Hind, which that was because I was rushing. I really should have sent in a regular strike mission. Oh, we didn't. Now, check this out. We dropped all this ordnance. Wow. That's the Hind's fault. Check this out. The not-Soviet team, they lost all this, including 24 trucks at the expenditure of 94 rounds. All right, hopefully this video is helpful. Again, assign you guys to support missions to keep them airborne. When you need them, you can just unassign them, do your attack, and then reassign them to that support mission to keep them up in the air. Don't forget to consider your WRA, because last thing you want them to do is to waste ammo. Rockets are one of my favorite, because every time you fire rockets, you fire them all. So keep that in the back of your head. And also, when it comes to weapons like those old-style ATGMs, it's worthwhile to fire more than one of them at a time, because that tends to be a little bit more deadly. Otherwise, you're just going to be wasting them. Enjoy.